There is never a dull moment in the real estate market, you guys. First of all, this whole NAR situation is turning the industry upside down. Baltimore just kicked off a new program where they're about to sell a bunch of vacant homes for $1 a piece. And the Florida governor just signed a new law that bans homeless people from sleeping in public. A lot going on lately, a lot of controversial stuff actually. So in today's episode, let's dive into some of the top real estate industry headlines from the last couple weeks. So this whole NAR situation, or NAR, I don't know, I've heard it pronounced both ways, but these guys just reached a $418 million settlement that said that realtors were conspiring to keep commissions too high on their transactions. Traditionally, agents have been paid a 3% commission regardless of what side of the deal they're on, meaning that buyer's agents were paid 3% of the sales price for bringing a buyer to a deal. Seller's agents were paid a 3% commission for listing a home for sale, and all of these commissions have traditionally been paid for by the seller or out of the seller's proceeds, meaning that anytime a seller wants to go sell their house, 6% of that sales price is going to go right out the door to the realtors for their commissions. For an average price home in America, this means that sellers on average are paying about $25,000 in realtor commissions when they sell their home. And for the luxury price points, like we talk about here on the channel quite a bit, those commissions are really big. Like if you're selling a $10 million house, that's $500,000 or $600,000 worth of commissions that you're gonna need to pay the real estate agent when your house sells. Now I'm just gonna throw my 2 cents in here. Everybody's all up in arms about this. Like everybody thinks that either realtors are maybe paid too much or sellers shouldn't be having to cough up all this money on commissions when they sell their house. As somebody who has bought and sold a ton of real estate over my lifetime, I'm gonna say I've always felt pretty fine about how much agents are getting paid for the work that they're doing. Starting in July though, sellers will no longer have to dish out a commission for the buyer's agent if they don't want to, which means that if a buyer comes to the table with an agent, they would need to figure out a way to pay that agent on their own. If I had to guess, at least for the foreseeable future, we're gonna keep seeing transactions close just the way they always have been. It's kind of one of those things where it's not broke, so why try to fix it? Back on March 19th and March 20th, the Fed met again, and yet again, they didn't cut interest rates, but they gave us a little glimmer of hope that there might be some rate cuts coming sometime soon. Even though the Fed didn't cut rates during their last meeting, they're still meeting a bunch more times in 2024. They'll be meeting end of April, middle of June, end of July, middle of September, first week of November, and then one more time in the middle of December. And at this point, some people are predicting that the rate cuts are going to happen through the summer for sure, just to make the economy look a little bit stronger as we head into the 2024 presidential elections. Now, I've said it many times before, I don't do politics, not really all that interested in them, definitely not interested in talking about them on YouTube, but what I will say is that I didn't really think that any politician, Republican or Democrat, really had any control over what the Fed does. I thought they were kind of like separate, but there's no doubt that rates coming down this year would improve consumer sentiment. If you look at this chart, it shows that consumer sentiment about the US economy specifically over the last 18 months or so has been a good bit lower than the prior few years, probably largely due to the high inflation and the high interest rates that followed. So yeah, if you're thinking about buying a house or if you're thinking about refinancing your house, there could be some good news ahead for you. Most major news outlets, at least as of right now, are predicting as many as 3 rate cuts between now and year end. Now, moving on to probably the most interesting story of the day, there are 1,000 city-owned homes in Baltimore that are about to be available for sale for just $1 a piece. This whole offering situation was passed during a meeting a few weeks back where there's going to be a new pricing structure on city-owned homes that are for sale. There's actually over 13,000 vacant properties in Baltimore, many of which are owned by the city. As with many programs like this, of course, there's a couple of catches. First, all applicants must have an available budget of $90,000 for property rehabilitation for each property that they apply for. Most of the city's inventory is going to require significant rehabilitation to bring the property up to code. So the reality is, if you do the math, the city's actually selling a bunch of houses for $90,001. You just have to have that cash in the bank to be able to pay for the renovation. Another catch is that for the homeowner who does want to buy one of these vacant houses for $1, they not only will need to do that $90,000 rehab, but they're also going to need to maintain the home as their primary residence for a minimum of 5 years after they get their certificate of occupancy. So yeah, I guess it's possible that you could still score a pretty good deal if you live in Baltimore and you're willing to do the remodel and you're willing to live in the house for 5 years, and you can buy a house in a neighborhood where homes are worth a lot more than $90,000, but either way, you're gonna need to jump through a bunch of hoops in order to get this done. So ever since that mansion tax went into effect, I've been kind of curious exactly how mansion sales have been affected in the LA area over the last year. So I figured in today's episode, we can just pull up Zillow together and kind of look at a couple transactions and see how these higher priced homes have been impacted. Remember, the mansion tax, it impacts properties that are sold $5 million or higher. On those ones, sellers need to pay an extra 4% transfer tax when they sell. And then sales that are $10 million or higher, those sellers need to pay an extra 5.5% tax on the sale of their home. So this just goes to show how crazy the LA market is. So I have this filtered by sold for 10 million or more, homes, just houses, not condos or anything. And I'm looking at just the last 6 months. We have got 45 total results. I'm kind of curious about here is, like, we've got this house, 25,000 square feet. It sold for $35 million like 6 months ago. But if we go down to the price history, so this place was originally listed for $45 million in 2021. It eventually sold for $35 million. $35 million is still a lot of money, but that is a huge discount, a $10 million discount from the original asking price. This one here looks like it was probably a cool house, probably a brand new build, sold for 20 million bucks in December of last year. So if we go to the price history on this one, so this one was originally listed for basically 26 million. They did some price drops. They put it up for rent for a minute. Then it sold for 20 million. I mean, that's a huge discount. What is that? From 26 million down to 20. That's like a 25% discount or something. This one here on Sienna Way, nice place, a little bit of a different style. This one just sold in January of this year. And so let's see. Original list price was $43 million back in 2021. Then, after a bunch of price drops, it sold for $27 million. I mean, you guys get the point, I think. Here's another super cool house. This one listed for originally, what? $48 million. I remember this house. So they were asking $48 million for this place in 2022. And after a ton of price drops, they ended up getting $25 million. So the price was basically cut in half on this home, from 48 down to 25. Unbelievable. I will say a lot of the homes like this one, the developers are probably just shooting for the moon to begin with. They put that $50 million price tag on that house. That thing's gonna hit all the major news outlets all around the world. It's probably gonna hit this channel and we're gonna be talking about it because anything at that price point is worth talking about. So there is a little bit of that going on where the agents and the developers are just asking for some sky high price that they're never gonna get to begin with. But I do think that after looking at the couple that we looked at today, plus another dozen or so homes, the mansion tax does seem to have had a really big impact on not just the final sales price of these homes, but just the total number of transactions across LA that we're seeing right now. We got to round it out with what will probably be the most controversial story of the day, and that is that Florida just signed a new law into place that bans homeless people from sleeping in public. Governor Ron DeSantis signed the law which states that people experiencing homelessness in Florida are going to be banned from sleeping overnight on streets, on sidewalks, and in parks. The homeless problem in Florida is not actually as bad as other parts of the US, but there still were about 31,000 homeless people across the state in 2023. The bill gets into a lot of detail about exactly what's not allowed, but the gist of it says that public camping or public sleeping is what's now against the law. This topic for sure gets people fired up. there's a lot of people I saw out there who are basically now asking, okay, well, maybe this is a fine law, but where are all these homeless people going to go now? The thing is, though, counties will still be able to designate specific areas for public camping, so it's not really completely banning public camping. It's just gonna make counties make it to where you don't have just people sleeping and scattered all over town. In theory, this should solve two problems. For one, the public safety problem, but for two, if they do have everyone consolidated, you would think that at that point they're going to be able to offer these homeless people a lot more support just for like other long-term housing or jobs or medical care or whatever, if they're all consolidated into one general area. That's a wrap for today's episode. If you guys enjoyed the episode, make sure you hit the like button down below before you go, and don't forget to hit subscribe as well, because we're putting new videos just like this one out every week. I'll see you next time.